Whatever is going on in a person's psychology is mirrored in their physical body. Long repressed resentment gets into the joints and causes arthritis. Deep hurt can end up in heart disease, and repressed anger often ends up as cancer, and so on. So we can see these correlations and so on. So once we can work at the level of cause, then it's reasonable to think we can get resolution. But we were never taught this. We were never given the tools, and we weren't given the relationship and the correlations. It's not as profitable, I guess. And so we create our own reality energetically. And why I'm saying that is everything in life is vibration and frequency. And there's infinite possibilities in the field. And there's something out in the field and it comes into resonance and it draws that experience into your life. I mean, that's a very simple version, but we have millions of messages coming off of us and drawing millions of experiences back to us. So we have to know what's in our unconscious. But the problem with the unconscious is it is indeed unconscious. It's below awareness. The world is our extended body. We're a part of it, not separate from it.
And we meet lots of people where they're spiritually bypassing. They're hanging out in the pretty unicorns and the candy floss and the bubble gum of life. And that is not real either. To know and not to feel is not to really know. We are here to know through the experience of feeling it. And so that is when we know pain and we know joy, then we have tasted life. And to have only one and not the other, it can't be. We know ourselves even more through the mirrors of relationships. So I would say really cherish the people that upset you because they're showing you something maybe that you're unwilling to see in yourself. Cherish the ones that are also there supporting and loving us and showing us who we are when we forget. So I think that relationship is everything.
How did you guys get into being spiritual messengers? I kind of have a little background on what you both do, but I think it's pretty cool that you guys have found a way to integrate what you guys are doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, spiritual messengers, it started a long time ago. I mean, I started out as a massage therapist and a long time ago. And then I started to move into mind-body therapy because I realized massaging was only temporary and people would get, in pain again. So I started to recognize that the mind and the body are two just expressions of the same thing, and whatever's going on in a person's psychology is mirrored in their physical body. Mm-hmm. So that sent me on a long journey of study and experience to learn the connection between the two. And so I learned many modalities and so on. And then after a period of time, maybe 20 years ago, started teaching what I had learned and used with my clients because it was very effective. And in that teaching journey, I met Jen, who came to one of my workshops, and she had her own healing modalities and was very psychic. And then after a number of years, we were colleagues, but then we became partners, and then we combined our practice, and I'm going to let Jen speak to it a little bit, but basically we followed the dictates of spirit, and they wanted us to work together in clients. So we see them on Zoom sort of like this. And between my healing, I mean, she has healing tools as well, but between my healing tools and her psychic abilities, we were able to reach deep into people's psyches and really help them because we were able to figure out what the cause of their problems were between the two of us. And then, so there was that, but then there was also our own inner work that we had done a lot of. And in doing our inner work and working with our clients, we learned a tremendous amount of things that you can't even read in books or learn out there in the metaphysical field. And then Spirit said, okay, now we want you to take what you've learned and put it out there. And so Jen channeled the book. And we're doing courses and workshops that are offering what we have learned and gleaned from our years of practice with clients.
Amazing. That sounds amazing. And Jennifer, how did you get into this? Were you always connected to your abilities, or was that something that kind of manifested for you over time?
Good question. I think for me, it was always there, and that's what made life challenging, like as a young child. And because I actually had, luminaries appear to me. And so for me, being around people was challenging because I was so sensitive. I would feel their emotions. And I mean, that's an ongoing It's kind of workplace issue for me, but in terms of like, yeah, workplace hazard, because when people aren't, you're right, dealing with their stuff, it's like, it's very apparent to me. It's so easy. I can see everything,
Yeah.
and I mean that, like, I can see so deep. And so I think what kind of makes us unique is I had all these skills, but I think the masculine, what it has to do is it has to hold the feminine. And so my skills were good. And I kind of, but during a period of time, they became an issue as a teenager. And so I kind of shut them down, and they became maybe a little bit sideways. They weren't being channeled in the right way. But when I was a mother of two, around the age of 28, I had a divine spiritual awakening, because my own shadow was really more paramount in my life. And I was actually looking at a couple of your other chats that you've had, or your other podcasts, and you guys were talking a lot about shadow. And I was like, oh, good. Okay, we're going to speak the same language. But my shadow, when I was 28, which is a long time ago, I'm 50 now, was kind of front and center. And I had this massive spiritual awakening where I realized that I had pushed my feminine away. And in pushing my feminine away, because I had a lot of abuse in my past, the feminine was vulnerable. It wasn't celebrated. So a long time ago, I realized that, oh, this is what's my problem. I haven't bonded properly with my own son, right? One in particular. And so I had this call to action from the divine. It was actually the voice of the great spirits who spoke to me and told me exactly what to do. So in my humility, I picked myself up and said, okay, I know my way back, but it didn't mean it was going to be easy. I was working a lot, I think, on collective, pain bodies, collective consciousness
Yeah.
for other women. So anyway, so that began my journey when I was 28, and I started channeling right away. I was recording what I was hearing, and I know channeling it's a word that I'm careful with, because it sounds daunting. It has a lot of negative, feelings around it. But what I would say is, people accept poets and musicians who bring down the song. Oh, I just brought it down. That's essentially how it
Yeah.
is for me. But I'm doing it all the time. So it's not just a one moment. I'm always in that experience. And so, but at that point in my life, I had children. So I was, going into that experience for periods of time, and then I'd be mothering and anyway, but my children became my greatest teachers. And I say to people on the spiritual path, you don't have to go to the Himalayas. You don't have to take some pilgrimage to discover your divinity. It's at home. It's in your day to day. It's meeting the person at Starbucks and having that, exchange. That's divine. Everything we do is divine. And so anyhow, fast forward, I raised my two boys. I was in my first marriage, and that took its own path. And at a point in our lives, I separated, and then I found my way to Darryl. And so we became, and I knew I had, prophetic dreams, and because I have a lot of prophecies that come through, and I knew our path and what we had to do. The problem that I have is sometimes I see way too far ahead, and I have to, right, I have to take all the steps necessary to get there. So it can be somewhat comical for us, because I said, well, this is what's going to happen. And so Darryl's not there yet, but then we arrive there. So anyway, and the other thing I would add that's unique about us is, so we had our practices independently, and they were good. They were good practices. Spirit said, okay, do you want to go to the Olympics of spiritual practice? Do you want to go all the way? And so we had to make a choice, and it was our choice. And so we said, yes, we want to do everything. And so they removed us into nature, deep into nature, kind of off the grid. And this is where the hours, and like thousands and thousands of hours of dedicated to channeling and doing our own inner transformation. Because if we are the model, we are the avatar that can bring through that information. And so if we don't understand it ourselves, then we can't actually bring it down. We have no concept for it, right? So they have diligently put us through the paces in terms of rigorous challenges and our own personal karmic lessons in order to understand the collective work that we can bring. And so now we're back out. We've done our deep introspective years. I think it took us about 3 years to do all of that. So we were kind of off the grid, if you want to call it, in lots of ways. And now Spirit's like, okay, step back out. And here we are.
That's fantastic. That's a journey. Oh my goodness. And so, Darryl, when you were first speaking, you mentioned inner work, and Jennifer, you just kind of like touched on that as well. And of course, when it comes to healing work, when you're healing others, a huge part of that is also working with yourself, healing yourself, and
Mhm.
like really getting into those inner parts of yourself. So I'd love to know, like, what were your healing journeys like?
Wow. Well, I mean, my big sacred wound
Mhm.
was I was adopted as a child, and so adopted people typically have abandonment issues, and they
Yeah.
reach into your subconscious because your mother gives you away, and then went to a foster family, and then that mother gives you away, and then I go to another foster family, or another. Yeah, I went basically two foster families, and then finally into the family I grew up with. And so there's nothing stable, and you develop all kinds of beliefs like if somebody's giving me away, I must be no good. And
Yeah.
But that's in your subconscious. It's not like I grew up thinking that consciously, but I think it's useful to talk about a little bit about the subconscious mind to
Mm.
understand that it's very much like a computer, and its basic job is to keep us safe and keep us alive and so
Yeah.
on. And so in doing so, it makes interpretations of the events that happen to us. So it's like, oh well, you have to stay safe and alive, but nobody wants you, so you have to protect yourself, and then you develop strategies. And for me to protect myself is like, well, I thought if people don't love me, then they're going to get rid of me and they'll abandon me. So I became a
Mm.
people pleaser essentially, and I would jump if anybody wanted me to do anything, and I gave my power away and didn't take care of my own needs in that way. And
Yeah.
so then it would end up for me as being I suddenly would get really angry because all of my emotions that I'd kept down would just go. And
Yeah.
so that was the journey. It was like I have to, but it's the belief system is just a program in your computer of your subconscious mind. So you can change those programs, but you
Hmm.
can't just do it with affirmations, or a very weak solution for doing that. You have to engage the subconscious in the way the subconscious works. So using affirmations is like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. You have to, right? So you have to learn the machine, if you will, how the subconscious works. And so once I did that and started working on that, then I was able to start to get separation from my people pleaser, know that I do belong and there's nothing wrong with me, and so on. So that's a journey, though. In the proverbial onion, that you peel layers of the onion off
Yeah.
is a very good one. As
Yeah.
well often used as it is, but it's kind of very true. You have to keep doing your inner work, but there's a lot of fruits on that, because when we don't do the inner work, that repressed emotion, or those limiting beliefs, or whatever that's in your psyche, or the shadows, they will come back to haunt you. And this is mythology. When you cut off the hydra's head or the dragon's head, it grows two. When you cut off the two heads,
Yeah.
it grows four, right?
Yeah.
It comes back to bite you. And oftentimes that's illness, disease, or behavioral issues, relationship problems. It's going to show up in your life in some way. And so when you do your inner work, those things change. And so it's like an ounce of prevention. Our world, in our kind of medical model, not to diss it, but it's very much based on things just happen willy nilly. We have no relationship to it. And then we wait
Yeah.
for it. And then we hope, cross our fingers, that there's a pill I can take that'll make it go away, and so on. But that's not how it works. The universe is way too intelligent for that. There's a whole system of healing called psychoneuroimmunology, where they do psychological profiles on people that get certain illnesses, and they find correlations. Long repressed resentment gets into the joints and causes arthritis, and deep hurt can end up in heart disease, and repressed anger often ends up as cancer, and so on. So we can see these correlations and so on. So
Yeah.
once we can work at the level of cause, then it's reasonable to think we can get resolution. But if we address those issues before the lump forms or the heart attack happens, right? It's an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But we wait till our body is screaming at us, trying to get us a message. And then we then have to circle the wagons and get knives out or radiation out and do these really invasive things
Yeah.
to try to deal with it. But we have to take responsibility for our lives and our health and our bodies. But when you take responsibility, you have the ability to respond. Then you're back in the seat of your own power. And that's what we all need to do. But we were never taught this. we were never given the tools, and we weren't given the relationship and the correlations. It's not as profitable, I guess, but this is one of the
Yeah,
things that we have to do.
exactly.
We have to take charge of our own lives. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that was perfectly said. Yeah. There is just, you're so right on the wall with that. That is so true. Jennifer, I'd love to
Mhm.
hear more about what your healing journey was like. What was that like for you? Because, like you describing having to suppress your abilities at some point. I know it's a lot when you're going through those years as a teenager and the hormones and trying
Mhm.
to understand yourself and make sense of life and what you're supposed to do and all the things. There's just so much happening there alone in just that phase of life. Becoming a mom, just so many transitional phases, right? So I'd love to know how that kind of played out for you in kind of get into what it is that you needed to connect to within yourself,
Mhm.
whatever aspects of you needed healing, and then integrating that so that you could, I guess, like come into your abilities in a more wholesome way.
Mhm. Great question. So I'm going to give you a pretty detailed answer because I think it's really important what you're asking. And if this is when I went through this, this is for other women. Like I feel like it- what we do together is really just helping change the collective. And so for me, I stepped into the world, and I think from the beginning, and we hear this in our clients' voices as well, and a lot of women, is they don't feel enough as being a woman. And so the value of being a woman has been very low compared to the masculine. Everything masculine has been celebrated, and we see that everywhere, where it's athletics or, who's at the top, leadership, it doesn't matter. But
Mm,
it doesn't mean that I want to go to the top and be the CEO and cut my hair off and get my briefcase. That's not what I think. I think we've been misguided that way, that that's
yeah.
the way that I'll be recognized. It's celebrating what we as women are here to offer: the nurturing, the creativity, the inspiration in terms of our intuition and the home and hearth, that type of energies. But I was the firstborn on a farm. So I was raised more in my masculine side. And I have
Mm,
all of these capacities and abilities of and independence, and like I can do anything. And so I
yeah.
exercised all of that as a woman very strongly for a long, long time. And that's what my parents needed from me. And so that was reaffirmed and reaffirmed and reaffirmed. And then I'm like, oh, and then I was at the top, not at the top of my career, but I had a very successful career. I was working for the NHL. So I was in television. I'd climbed to, so I was in a really great corporate role. And then I have this child, and I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, oh, I just have to do these things to make myself successful. But
Yeah.
I couldn't soothe them as much as I came to do. And so the awakening into the feminine has been my sacred wound and what I'm here to offer. And so as I had that awakening that I talked about earlier, it really took me on it really focused my path, because when I was younger, I had these abilities to do things like literally move objects or connect to an entity or see things, and I had no, I'm thinking other people can do. I didn't have an understanding of it at all. And so when I
Yeah.
had my awakening, I could really say, oh, there's something really important about these gifts. And so I would hide out in the occult section, or I don't know, that section in Indigo, and
Yeah.
really try, because in those days it was very frowned upon, right? It
Yeah.
was kind of shame a little bit. And so I would look at other things that were out there, but always really went back to my own experience. I became my own teacher. So yes, I took Reiki, and yes, but I took those modalities, but I took them further. And so I went into those modalities, but I expanded them in so many ways because spirit was my teacher. They would be
Yeah.
telling me what to do, how to navigate the healing issue. And so I had a prophecy actually right as Darryl and I were coming together that I was going to have cancer. So and I did not want to hear that, because we were just starting out and moving in together. And so I compartmentalized that prophecy. And during our time, I had some fibroids that were there. And so I had physical bleeding. I had a little little procedure that was to rectify that, right? So I
Mm.
thought, oh, maybe that's what it is, but it wasn't. So about 3 months before we were going to get married, I had more symptoms, and I knew that it was probably that. So then a week after we were married, I returned to find out that I had uterine cancer, and Spirit said, okay, and they came to me the night before. They said, it's going to be cancer. And I had, figured so. And so I had my uterus removed. I had a full hysterectomy.
Mm.
And so in our practice, we are not, alternative only. We're very much an integrative approach in terms of Spirit knows best. So for me, because of the denial of the feminine, it had manifested in such that my hormones created this situation where I rejected so much of my feminine that I lost my uterus. And
Mm.
it was a hard thing to come to, right? But I
Mhm.
trusted them. They said, you're going to be okay. You're going to take hormones. I take bioidentical hormones. So I recreate in my body, and I'm very, very healthy now. So, but 2 months into my recovery, they came back. Spirit said to me, it will return if you don't learn all of the lessons from this experience.
Mm.
And so as we were kind of alluding to before, we learn as much as we're willing to face, right? And so I was working away and say, yep. But if there's any subconscious repression, it'll show up. So
Yeah.
the night before my 6-month checkup to the date, Spirit said, it's returned. The cancer's returned. And I felt a little bit surprised and
Mhm.
kind of bewildered, because I thought I would do anything. But
Yeah.
anyway, so we go into the appointment, and my gynecologist said, oh, there's a lump here, and he could even palpitate it. I have to send you for a CAT scan immediately. And so in that 5 days, because they lost my paperwork synchronistically, we dug in and we did everything we took everything in our arsenal, and we said, okay, Spirit, what lessons are still there for me to learn in terms of the value of the feminine, the repression of the feminine, the anger
Yeah.
of all of that trauma going through, whether this lifetime, other lifetimes, or collective. And a lot of it was collective work that we were healing. And so the night before the CT scan that would have confirmed it, Spirit came through and they said, okay, Darryl, we want you to use your crystal. He uses a Vogel crystal from time to time to heal.
Yeah.
And we're going to heal her through that crystal. And he worked on me for, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes. And the next day we went for the CAT scan. And 3 or 4 days later, the results were clear. And
Mm.
the last part of the fun part of the story was we knew it would be, but it's always fun to hear those words. Oh, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
2 weeks later, my gynecologist called me on a Saturday, and he said, I just can't be with these results. I want to do further testing. Would you be open to it? And we said, of course, So
Yeah.
he just said, I don't understand why it's not there, because I know it's there. And we had a second test confirming that it was clear. So Spirit led me down that path. And in my journey from the age of 28 to now I'm 50, I have had to understand the repression of the feminine, the healing of the feminine, the true value of the feminine, instead of chasing it in this way. Like, I need to be strong as Darryl, or I need to do this like Darryl to prove who I am, versus I'm going to step back into my true innocent self and reclaim my innocence. I'm not sinful, not responsible for anything, like in the Eve story of Eve. We had to
Mm.
really reclaim and restore the innocence to the feminine, and so that we can be, when we look at this, the witch burning times, or these type of things in history where women have been shamed and blamed, we had to go in and really free up that energy and really return the innocence. And that's what our workshop's about now.
Amazing. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. Oh my gosh. I'm so happy about that. Like, you telling me that, it really makes me so happy, like the whole healing. That is amazing. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. I can only imagine what your gynecologist was thinking.
Yeah, poor guy is.
Mind blown.
Yeah, he had no box for that.
Yeah.
Oh man. Oh, I can only imagine. Thank you so much for sharing that with me, the
Mhm.
both of you. Touching on the divine masculine and feminine. I'd love for you guys to talk about that some more.
Mhm.
What are the aspects of the divine masculine and feminine, and why is it so important, especially when we come in union with each other?
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's we have the archetypes that are in our culture that show us kind of what the, if I'll speak about the masculine, maybe let Jen speak about the feminine, but this is what the masculine is. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's Sylvester Stallone, or whatever it is. And we have all this idea of who's wearing the pants and who's making the decisions, or the political, or the patriarchal kind of idea that's what that is. But the divine masculine, the qualities are really much more about responsibility, taking responsibility in life and for the family and anything in your life for that. I mean, there's definitely, if it's about the family and you're in that role of protection and providing and being responsible and then taking charge and assertiveness and stepping up in life and meeting the challenges. And so those are, kind of some of the qualities of the divine masculine, but I think it's also coming from a place, if it's divine masculine, then it has a lot to do with integrity, right? Being true to your word, showing up and so on. So these are some of the qualities that we're looking at. And I mean, the masculine is more linear, it's more logical, it's more rational. It has those qualities. I mean, science is very much a masculine pursuit in a sense of that way. It breaks things down into parts. Whereas the feminine is more holistic. It sees the whole, and it, instead of knowledge, is more aligned with wisdom. So we're looking basically at these pairs. Now, these pair of opposites, not that one is better than the other. They have to be balanced with each other. And so on. When they're not balanced, then one will typically become distorted. And when it becomes distorted, it turns sour, and that's when you get into these power struggles and so on. But you want to come into a place of mutual empowerment. And so the divine feminine, it needs to come up in equal measure on that. And so I'll give it over to you, and then maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's so many things that I think Spirit would love to offer, just as they're yakking away at me. But I think one of the things is in sacred sexuality. So, I know that wants to be brought up in that. So what we're taking our clients into is their individual journey of the balance within themselves. So the masculine, the pursuit, the integrity, the responsibility, the dealing with their karma, facing their karmic lessons, right? Really embracing their journey. And then the feminine, which is allowing source and spirit to really move through them. Why are they here? What wants to be birthed in each individual, male or female? And so the balance is going to be, in gender, for sure, you're going to have more. If I'm feminine, or female, I'm going to have more of my feminine. I'm here to have that experience. I'm here to birth those and have the journey of being that female and embodying that. And then what we're doing is we're taking now our clients to, how do you bring that into partnership and the mirrors and opportunities in relationship, whether it's in a partnership like this way, or in my sister, my brother, my mother, my child. And so we want to start to look at all the mirrors in our lives. And I know you were touching on that in another episode. And so really, but now how does that step into our sacred sexuality? Because what's really happening right now is very important. There's a prophecy that we released, I think it was, maybe a month ago, where if the feminine is not really balanced within 47 years, we have a female leader that's going to be stepping in, and she's going to be harnessing too much masculine. And if she is voted in and holds that, say it's a president, some president, but if she holds and we are all seeing the feminine as that's what the feminine power needs, 300 years into our future, we start to open a trajectory where the feminine there's so much more masculine in our bodies that the men only smell masculine in the women. And so the instinctual nature of the relationship between man and woman is no longer in an organic or natural state. The man will start to see the woman as a threat because he's like, he can't smell her feminine, and the pheromones that go off in his mind says, oh, I want to protect her, or I want to provide for her, or I want to make sure she's, she chooses me. All of those energies get nullified. And so now he sees me, or sees the woman, as basically a smaller threat. Like, she's smaller than me, and she's threatening my survival. And so abuse, actually, when we are looking 300 years into the future, it actually goes up. So we really want to help the masculine and feminine balance and return to what we're naturally here to experience, and because it's so beautiful, but it's not
Yeah.
valued. And a lot of the things that the disruptors, as Spirit's saying in my mind right now, the disruptors are technology. It is the disruption that's happening in our brains. And so every time that handheld device really takes us up into the brain more and more and more, and out of our body, out of our instinctual nature, our hormones are impacted. So it's really driving our species off course. And so
Mm.
a lot of our work is really helping people reclaim their sacred sexuality, because that's really where our innate true power lies, the Kundalini.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing explanation. I love the way that you explained it. I've never heard it put that way before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like thinking about what you were saying, I'd love also for you to explain, because you mentioned the karmic patterns as well and how all of that ties into what we're here to experience. I'd love for you to kind of explain the that concept of karma, like what it really is and how that ties into everything that you guys are doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how we look at karma, because it shows up with our clients virtually every session
Mm-hmm.
and so on, it's karma is actually a very good thing. It's there to build our soul's evolution and our growth.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So karma is basically, it's not about us getting our comeuppance for doing something bad in a past life, although it can
Yeah.
sometimes look like that because we're trying to learn from experience. So the example, it's a good one to use, is let's say you abused power in a past life. And then you, at the end of your life, you have your life review and you realize you abused power. And then the next life, you put it in your chart to be on the other end, so that you are abused by excess power. And
Mm.
then you learn. The best way to learn is always through experience. So it's like, oh my God, that sucks. I mean, it feels terrible
Yeah.
to have that experience. And then it's supposed to integrate as wisdom in our fields. And then the next time we're in the position of power, we don't abuse it in that way. So that would be just one example of karma, but it can be anything. I mean, all energies are divine. Power is just power, but power used with consciousness can be the ability to set boundaries. Power used without consciousness can be abuse. But this is what happens in life, is sometimes we push things away. It's like, I gotta kill power
Mm-hmm.
on that, and then you're putting yourself in the victim's chair. So we're always having to learn to be in right relationship with all these different energies, whatever they
Mm.
may be, and so on. So karma is our ability to be able to learn and integrate the life lesson through the experience of it. If we don't learn it, then we're destined to repeat it. There's fractals, or what we call repeating patterns, and we see this all the time. So when it comes up, and it'll, in a session, it'll say, oh, we have to go into a past life to deal with, the person comes in with what they want to heal or change in their life, and it'd be, I can't sleep, or I have headaches, or I have this addiction, or whatever it is. And then they say, okay, we have to go to a past life. And then we get certain parameters from the past life, and then Jen looks at it psychically, and then we tell the story of what happened, and the person goes, oh my God, that's what's happening in my life now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the circumstances will be different, but the theme is actually the same. It's like another betrayal or an abandonment or some sort of thing, abuse. And then as a result of that, it's like, oh, there was a growth choice. There was an opportunity to learn this lesson. If we didn't learn the
Yeah.
lesson, then we're destined to repeat it, and so on. But many funny things happen with karma. And these are some of the things we're learning, is sometimes we go, karma's bad, and we give it to somebody else, or somebody else takes it from us because it looks, as perceived as suffering, and so on. But
Mm.
it is, and people need to go through it. They need to meet their karma and learn, because once you get the message, then the universe isn't sadistic. You can resolve that and work through it, unless it's super divine karma, which is another aspect of it, but which means you're going to go through it come
You're
hell or
going
high
through
water.
it. There isn't a
Yeah.
solution.
Yeah. So, but
That's
typically,
going to happen.
as you know, once you get the message, you don't need the messenger, essentially. And so
Yeah.
this then is, I think Jen's got something to add about this, but
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of a little bit how we look at it.
Yeah.
I think what Spirit wants me to just plug right now is to give parents the courage to let their kids go through stuff. Right now, the parenting has been a landslide of confusion, because people have lost their connection to their instinctual nature. And I was one of those people, right? I woke up to it. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my gosh, because I couldn't figure out. There was this woman that I knew. She naturally could parent. Her kids would do, and I just was at. I was like using check marks and sticker charts and all this contrived way of parenting. And this was a long time ago. But I figured
Yeah.
out. I'm like, oh, I naturally can do this. I'm just out of touch with it, and so I had to reawaken and reconnect to my feminine. And so I think that's epidemic right now, is people are parenting from this very like, oh, I don't want my child to suffer, I don't want them to hurt like I did. And so everyone's afraid to lay boundaries or to have no as a part of their arsenal. And so, and really teach and hold so the container of what they want their child to how they want their child to succeed. Spirit's saying, adding on the extreme opposite is they're over programming their children, like they're
Yeah.
in piano and they're getting tutored, and we're in rep this and rep that, and so they're hyper focused on achievement and not letting their children play and explore and be bored. And through boredom, oh, I created this game, or I created a new language, or I drew these things. And so you can see how parenting is really falling apart in a way. And so by us teaching and modeling this really important simple message, it's not complicated, but it's been complicated. And so
Yeah.
we're pulling everybody back to our grassroots. We really want to dial it down and really bring everybody back to, why are we here? We've been accelerated with technology, and that was brought in, probably against what should have happened in our timeline. We're going too quickly. And so we want to slow things down and bring things back to hearth and home and family, and this divine masculine, divine feminine balance.
Mm, yeah, that is so true. I love that. That's a beautiful message too, because like as a parent myself, I was once caught in that cycle of like, wanting the best for my kids and wanting to
Mm-hmm.
protect them and all of that. And, in the last few years, I myself began to realize like, you need to chill.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's not that serious. You need to chill and
Mm-hmm.
then just allow them to be, and
Yes.
that's something that I myself also as a mom has learned over
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
And the level of creativity that can come out of kids is just,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it's crazy. I can't even describe it. So yeah, you're so right with that. That was an amazing message.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because now we're like just talking about life stuff, right? Um I think that, you both have touched on being connected, being heart centered, being connected to your heart, in different ways. So I'd love for you to, I mean, what would you say, to someone who, well, maybe they feel like life is just too challenging, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're having a hard time, I guess, making sense of their experiences, of their choices, of the trajectory of their lives. And I think now more than ever, a lot of people are questioning a lot of things, which is
Mm-hmm.
great. But, I know it's so easy to get to kind of like be sunken in the distortion
Mm-hmm.
that is occurring. So I'd love to know, like, what do you both have to say to that?
Yeah, well, I mean that is an excellent inquiry, because this is what happens in life. And like I said, we were thrown into the game without the rules,
Yeah.
I think. And so we have to look at why these things are showing up in our lives. They're in the metaphysical world. There's a thing saying we create our own reality. And
Mm,
so we create our own reality energetically. And it's not so much like the manifestation. I want a Mercedes. I want a Mercedes. I want a. I mean, but you're speaking to the field. You're speaking to the field much more powerfully from the unconscious. And
yeah.
and so if I was to bring up a metaphor, if I had like two pens or something like that, let's say these are both tuning forks, and I strike this one and it's vibrating, and it's the same size tuning fork as the other one, and I bring it close to this one's going to start to vibrate as well.
Mm,
Okay. But if this is a bigger tuning fork and I strike it and I bring it to a smaller, nothing happens. So why I'm saying that is everything in life is vibration and frequency. So our thought forms that we have and hold in our subconscious, and if it's a shame program, I'm a horrible person, I deserve to suffer, I'm bad, that's like a tuning fork, and it goes out into the field, and there's infinite possibilities in the field, and there's something out in the field, and it comes into resonance, and it draws that experience into your life. So what's showing up in your life very much is a mirror of your own consciousness.
Yeah.
Right. And like you were saying, heart centered, if the person is in a place of, I'm worthy of the best that love and life has to offer, I'm worthy of good things, I'm a good person, I'm divine, that's your tuning fork, and it goes out into the field and it finds a like vibration and draws that experience into our lives. So, I mean, that's a very simple version, but we have millions of messages coming off of us and drawing millions of experiences back to us.
Yeah.
And so we have to look, especially if there's a similar pattern coming up and showing up over and over again. It's like, oh my God, I got rid of this partner and I drew in this other one and they're the exact same. And then I got rid of them. And what's the common denominator? It's like, oh my God, it's me, right? And it's me, right? What is it that I'm, and so it's all energetics. And energetic dynamics, and without exaggerating, are literally mathematical. So once you learn the math and you can start to see, oh my gosh, what's being reflected back to me by what's showing up in my life. And once you learn how to read those signals, then you can shift the state of your consciousness and then not draw those patterns in and start to draw other patterns in. And of course, we see this happen all the time with our clients because that's what we're doing. We're changing their energetic dynamics. We're changing those programs. We're changing how they speak to the field. And then it changes. Their whole life is because it's an intermingling of all these energetic dynamics, ours with theirs, and they mix and they create a pattern and a waveform, and it turns into an expression. So once you change yours, the whole thing has to come into a new pattern. So this then becomes the idea of starting to look at that. So we have to know what's in our unconscious, but the problem with the unconscious is it is indeed unconscious. It's below awareness. So one way to look at our unconscious programs is our dreams. Our dreams are constantly showing us what's alive in there through metaphor and so on. It's like, there's a child on the sidewalk and I get in my car and I drive away. It's like, oh, that's your inner child that you're driving away from. And so you're not paying, or there's my Aunt Louise is in jail. And what's Aunt Louise? Well, Aunt Louise is super creative and artistic, and you've got that part of you in jail, and you're like linear and all about mind and science, and you've lost that part of you. So we're always being given, the universe is a reflection of what it is we need. So you need to understand what's being mirrored to you, and then you need tools to be able to change it, because remember I said that two minds work differently. So in our workshops, we give people the tools, and we've come up with this wonderful metaphor. Spirit dropped it in, that when you come to our workshops, or we're going to have them online as well, it's like basically we're teaching people how to brush and floss their teeth, right? And how to clean up some of those programs. When a person comes to see us as a client, it's like going to the dentist, because sometimes you need a root canal. Sometimes you got to get in there and you have to dig out things that it's too hard to pick up on. But we've been at this for 50 years collectively, and we're very good at doing that. I mean, we have clients that, they one visit and they were alcoholic, and now they don't take alcohol anymore, and clients that have chronic pain all their lives, and they have a couple visits and then that goes away. So because you're working at the level of cause, but we can do a tremendous amount of work, but we don't understand our inner workings and what's being played in the unseen world. But as you deal with it there, then you get all that insights and understanding of why it's playing out in your life. And that would be my long-winded answer to your question.
Love that. Yeah. Jen?
Yeah, there's something from Spirit that they want us to add, and it's there's a couple parts. One is, I'm going to say these words again, because it seems very, very important, the instinctual nature. So the instinctual nature is like found in our root chakra, right? Our root has been very severed. We are up in our minds, right? So the more we build that base chakra, really more we connect to our earth, which is our extended body, we are going to harness a survival energy because I was like, I was like asking Spirit, how do you want me to answer this question? And then they gave me this picture. I'm like, what's different in me that maybe someone else might not have? And that is a survival, the ability to get up and do it. And so that energy has been drained by people. And Spirit was showing me just now, just right now, this is brand new, that severing of the root chakra really has made people weak. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
why am I so strong? Oh, my roots are very, very, very strong. And so that power that I access is the power of the whole planet. Right. And so I get up and I do it. And I'm like, it doesn't mean I'm not tired and I don't, want to take a break and all those things. But the energy in other people is very weak. And so they don't have the capacity to really get themselves going, get that fire burning. And so think of the molten fire in the center of the planet. We need fire, we need catalyst, we need power to get going. And so that root chakra, if I was to really help people, I would focus on healing that. And that can take all kinds of different forms and looking and really studying the root, which we offer in our workshop, of course. And so once you harness that instinctual nature, now you've got drive, because you think of an animal, they are going to protect themselves. They are going to survive. And so we've lost that, in that severing. So that's number one. Number two is, what else did they want me to say? I feel like I've got all excited about that, but it might come back. But I think that the process, the light body process. I think. So I was just wanting to add. So these clients that we've worked with, just a couple people in the last couple of days that we can just. It's easy for us to remember the success. Like one session eradicated alcoholism. She went into full detox, checked herself in. Yes. And she was only 23 years old. She said she never thought she would stop drinking. She had been drinking since she was 14 or 15.
Oh, wow.
And drug addiction. Another client had basically a deep mold issue, like a systemic issue where she had been to every doctor, functional medicine, various therapies of all kinds. But the formation of her illness was her deep anger towards her parents, her father and her mother, woundings, very deep woundings. And so she could not let go of that mold. And so the mold, yes, was making her sick, but it was actually the wounding from her own feminine and masculine relationship that was holding it in place. And so even though there were all these things were attempting to help her, nothing could immobilize it. Nothing could move out. She hadn't exercised or done anything in years. And just with 2 sessions, she's back out gardening. And this is a woman who's maybe 35. She's a young, what you would think, looking at her, capable, strong woman, but she was totally immobilized by this illness for years and years and years. So this stuff on a deeper level, when you're ready, that was the last piece, Spirit, you have to want it. You have to want this more than breath. And so that's why I was like, well, how am I going to get people to want it more than breath? Your instinctual nature has to be activated again. And so that survival energy, I want to change. I want to get better. I want to know the truth, because a lot of us don't want to know the truth. A lot of us want to stay in like, I'll just like leave that for another day. I'll avoid it. I'll deny it. I don't want. But when people meet with us, we move mountains by facing the truth, and the change that's possible for people, unbelievable. We have so many stories of this nature.
That's beautiful. Is this what you're speaking about, is this process what you call the awakening your light body process?
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, that's what we teach in our workshops, and we were just in Ontario and taught 3 workshops and took a bunch of people through, and it's amazing. Like some people just from the workshops, we've had people say, "Oh my God, I woke up the next day and didn't need my glasses."
Right,
and
another addiction.
Yeah, there are all kinds of things. Sometimes you don't even know this is related to that, but what's stored in our system is powerful. Emotions buried alive never die is a wonderful quote by a woman named Candace Burton, who's in our field, but it's true. And they have a huge charge, and it takes a tremendous amount of energy to keep that stuff pressed down and so on. And once you finally let it go, all that energy is liberated.
That power.
Yeah. But if those buried resentments and angers and things of that nature, they're acidic, and they're acidic to your body. They change your body's pH. And in that, you create heat and inflammation, and you think of all the itises in our world, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are all inflammatory processes. Another thing very often you'll see is people that are angry at themselves. They have a big inner critic. We all have one. Some people, wait, you're really, really big, and some people's not
Mm.
as big, but that voice inside of us that beats us up. Well, the part of us that takes the hit from that is our inner child. It's like internal child abuse, and it creates autoimmune diseases because we're attacking ourselves, our autoimmune. And so we don't see the relationship. But once we start to separate from that inner critical voice, then we are free in a way, and we're starting to care for our own inner child. And then that child can express its creativity. We can have more fun and richness in our lives, and life can take on a whole new meaning. The symptoms aren't really the problem. The symptoms are your body's way of letting you know that something at a deeper level needs your awareness. And so, just by shutting off the symptoms is like taking the battery out of the fire alarm when your house is on fire. You still have a
Yeah.
problem, right? So we need to deal with things at the level of cause, and then things change and so on. So there's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual reasons why things show up in people's lives, and you have to work at all those levels very often. But sometimes there's ones that are primary. But being kind and gentle with ourselves is a clue, because if we are critical to ourselves, like those mirrors, then we will draw in people that judge us. That's another one of these mirrors that we're talking about. And so when you change your relationship to yourself, then what happens in your life changes. People have been trying to change others all through history, and it
Oh,
never
yeah.
really works. But what you can change is yourself. And when you change yourself, you change the energetic dynamics, and you change what shows up. So we want to empower people to start to recognize their relationship to their world and to their life and to the people in their life, and to their own bodies and to the earth at large, because this then can be extrapolated into the problems that we have in our world, because we have our own little subconscious minds, which is individuated, and then there's the collective unconscious, which is all of our psyches put together. And those patterns in there, because that collective of repressed patterns will show up in our environment and so on, because there's a lot of inflammation on the earth right now, isn't there? The earth is heating up and things like that, right? And so we need the feminine cooling energies to bring that heat down and back into balance. But the feminine has been repressed, and so we're seeing that as a kind of a more of a globalized expression of the collective unconscious. So as we start to shift here, then it's going to be reflected, because it's not a metaphor. The world is our extended body. We're a part of it, not separate from it. And once we start to recognize that, then we can actually make a huge difference in our environment and our world, and make it more sustainable.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you so much for that response. That was phenomenal, Darryl. You know, you touched on so many things there. I don't even know which direction to take the question that I'm about to ask you. You touched on so many things there, and I'm just like, okay, all right, let's go with this. So, thinking about, like you spoke about things on, the different bodies that we have, the mental, the physical, the emotional, how these different bodies come into play into the things that manifest in our lives, in our bodies, in the way our world looks, right? Um, Taking all of that into context, it's, like as we say, right, we've been talking about this mirroring effect, right, during this conversation. And you speaking about the inflammation that we experience in our bodies on an individual level, it's also the inflammation that is mirrored back into the world with everything that's going on, in the collective, and even,
Environmentally.
yeah, even in the environment and nature and everything else in between. What do you think? I know this is a big question, but what do you think is the purpose of all of this, of us being here right now?
Your
Okay.
turn.
All right. I'll have a go. Well, I think that we're eternally learning through a creative process, and free will is fundamental to that process. So we jump into situations, and we say, oh, how am I going to respond in this situation? And we have these options in front of us. And so the informing energies that you were speaking about, and I'm just going to draw them back into the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. So what spirit has showed me, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to. So the heart, the toroid, so the center of our being, is kind of like the pivot point. It's the entry point for everything. It's the entry point for the truth. It's the entry point into source. It's the nucleus of our whole being, right? And so
Yeah.
we are informed. I'll just do it maybe from below, but we are informed by our bodies. So that information comes up into the heart. Our emotions are informing us of information. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, that is a trigger. So we're being informed by that. The mental process of like, oh, I know if I spend all my money, I won't have money tomorrow. Oh, there's information there. So there's data. And then there's our spiritual input impress from source and from our own guides and guidances, and so our angels. And so all of that comes in, and we are to bring it into the heart and say, okay, I have all this data now. What choice am I going to make? Why is this presenting? And so we're now getting at the heart of it. So language is beautiful. For me, I love the study of linguistics. We're getting to the heart of the matter. And so
Yeah.
now we're really drawing upon all of this knowledge, wisdom, and information. And we're creating in this moment, this very moment, the next choice. And so, and then the dynamic, the complexity of our soul grows when we're bringing in all that information. What happens is we become in distortion when we go only to the mind, or we go only to the emotion, or we go only to the physical body, and we say, run for
Yeah.
us, like just go. And so, or we're up in our spiritual body, and we meet lots of people like that where they're spiritually bypassing. They're hanging out in the pretty unicorns and the candy floss and the bubble gum of life. And
Yeah.
that is not real either. So you can see why we need all four pillars online. And they need to all come into this very quiet place within the heart. And we go into the cave of the heart, and we take space, and we have, oh, now I understand. And then that is ultimately just the nucleus, the radiation of light that is emitted from that heart-centered experience is essentially the light body, and it is the light that we see in people, and it is the essence of feeling why you're alive. To know and not to feel is not to really know. It's one of my favorite quotes. And so we
Mm.
have to feel our way through this experience, and that is why we're here. We are here to know through the experience of feeling it. And so that is when we know pain and we know joy, then we have tasted life. And to have only one and not the other, it can't be. And so I think that we're very, very, very blessed to be embodied. Like spirit shows me that. Oh my gosh, when I touch the sacredness of someone that's transitioned or is transitioning, someone, when we work with people who are in those energies,
Mm.
the intensity of that, the gift of life is like, I don't even know if there's anything more sweeter than that. And so I think we forget because the mind doesn't have an information for that. It
Mm.
has to be in the feeling body and in the physical expression in their spiritual body. So I don't know if I've answered your question, but hopefully I've kind of given you a taste of where I go and why every breath and every moment, every morning when I rise, it's like I'm so excited. For me, every morning is like Christmas Day. I really do feel that way. I really feel, and have since I really woke up. So I think awakening people, that's why it's Awaken Your Life Body, is really like awakening out of the illusion of like, there's no purpose. There's nothing here. I don't understand it. It's just about making money. What am I, it's too routine. That is a living death. That is not purpose.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. That was a great response. I'd love to know. That's definitely a great response. I'd love to know, because I know you've been telling me that you've been receiving information
Mhm.
um during our conversation. I'd love to know, who are you currently working with? Like, who are
Always
your
channel.
spirit guides? I'd love to know more about that.
Okay. Primarily, I mean, people like to put labels on things, and I've
Mm,
been anti-label for a long time. However, so primarily, I'm always speaking with Angel Uriel. So she has been like every day, all the time. However, a lot of times I'll be speaking with who would be, it depends on the person. So imagine it's like, well, what kind of ice cream would be best for this dessert? And then it's like, oh, it's
yeah.
chocolate. Oh, we're gonna, so right now it's like, it depends. If it's Jesus that I have to bring through that information, it's coming probably from that consciousness of the Christ energy that needs to be brought into the experience. And so the experience kind of dictates the luminary that I connect to. But often I'm also speaking with what I will say is the Divine Father and the Divine Mother. So the Great Spirit, it kind of splits into two. It's like if I'm speaking to the Divine Father aspect of the Great Spirit, there's a certain instruction or way why. And if it's the Divine Mother, then there's an example of why I'm on the feminine side of the Great Spirit. So I definitely work in that. But all of the luminaries, when you think of Mary Magdalene and Buddha and Kuan Yin and who else? White Buffalo Calf Pipe Woman. So we just worked with her yesterday because the client has a lineage, an indigenous lineage. So it was a great match. We had another client who the messages needed to come through from White Buffalo Calf Pipe Woman. And this person was like gobsmacked because they're like, oh, you have no idea. My sacred animal, I have everywhere in my house is a buffalo. And so
Wow.
it was the most meaningful experience for him because his soul needed that confirmation in that
Yeah.
moment. So it really is unique to each person.
Yeah, that's
Hopefully that
beautiful.
helps.
Yeah, I mean, in the Way to Peace, Jen's book, it was Jesus that came through in
Right.
the channeling, and it was, yeah. I mean, it's amazing to realize that, oh my God, that's the luminary that wants to share at this time in history, and yeah, I think that's a good thing to talk about a little bit because
Yeah, I
the
was
book,
just about to ask you about that. You were just like,
yeah,
Perfect.
well,
I
yeah,
was
I should
just
let
about to
Jen
ask
talk
you
about
about
that, but
Okay.
I
Go
think
for it.
what's really interesting is there's been a lot of things like we live in this third dimensional existence, which is a very small bandwidth of the complete bandwidth that exists
yeah.
in totality. And so there's a lot of things that are happening outside of our dimension. And
Mm-hmm.
what comes through in the book is those influences
Mm-hmm.
because they're strong influences on us and we don't know that they're there, but
Mm-hmm.
they a lot of them aren't friendly and they play with our minds essentially because that's essentially the game. It's not like the Hollywood movie so much, but if you can work on a person's consciousness and adjust it in this way or that, then you can basically control their whole being and their existence and how they show up in the world. So
Yeah.
there is that in the book, and I think in the book we start to develop a much deeper understanding of our relationship to our extended world,
Mm-hmm.
and why we need to really step up right now because everything is bottlenecking right now, and we're living, is I mean, if you I have to say it's like we live in denial, a lot of us, and if you
Yeah.
thinking problems are just going to go away, it's like the ostrich. If he sticks his head in the sand, his butt is still in the air, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're still gonna, you can't think it's just going to go away. And but the good news is, as we do our own inner work and really do what's on our plate and what's we came here to do and fulfill our purpose, then everything can rebalance and come back into harmony. But we have to collectively really start to show up that way because the truth does set us free. Sometimes people believe what they want to believe. It may have nothing to do with the truth and that, but we're
Mm,
conditioned by things. We're conditioned by the media. We're conditioned by that. We believe it because it's convenient for us to believe it, but we've never been taught that our body has a truth detector in it. And when things aren't in alignment with truth, our body is going to tell us that. But because we live in our minds and are like bobbleheads, we're not connected to the part of us that goes, well, that doesn't feel right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
yeah.
And then we're a dawdle to manipulate. So what is it? It's really important that we connect to these deeper parts of ourselves because, the truth is what is going to liberate us. And because it accepts that. And sometimes it's like, well, I don't want to believe that. But ultimately, that's your liberation.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that is so true, Darryl. That is so true. Like that connection back to your body, and like just also as we spoke about that integration between the four bodies, how
Mhm.
important that is, not leaning so much into one or both or whatever aspect that a lot of us tend to lean. I think a lot of us, we've been programmed to be in our minds a lot, primarily. And yeah, I'm so happy that you both spoke on that today, because I think it's something that we need to talk about, and a lot of people need to hear and be aware of, because I think we're completely unaware of that.
Mhm.
Because
Very
we're
much so.
literally
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
just we're unaware of it. We operate from our minds, like some of us like 100% of the time, some of us a little bit less, some of us somewhere in the middle, but it's about definitely having that balance. So yeah, you guys gave such beautiful messages today, and thank you for bringing up the way to peace. You were just so on point with that. It was the perfect moment to speak about it. I'd love to know, like, if is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't yet spoken
Discuss.
about?
Um, I think it's, we want to leave people with the idea that they're much more powerful than they have been led to believe.
Mm-hmm.
We again, I think the game has been to people's minds and so on. But when you awaken your light body, you're moving this energy up to its full potential,
Mm-hmm.
and that potential is magical. As a child, I used to go, I wish magic was real, I wish magic was real. And then you grow up,
Yeah,
and then you go, oh my God, it is real.
it
and
is.
that and
Yeah.
so as we start to, but it needs to be, as we're in this journey, we become kind of a little bit more egoically identified and about self. But as we recognize that we're all connected, we are all like leaves on the same tree or drops in the same ocean. And when we come from that place of one for all and all for one, then the world will change and so on. Not only so, we need to get into that empowered place where we can step into the fullness of our deepest potential, and then come from that heart place, because that heart is that place that is the impulse towards unity. When we have in a deeply loving state or a heart state, there's a coherence that happens between us and our environment, and we come into a sense of oneness. And in that place of oneness, great change can happen. So, but we have to have that relationship with ourselves first, instead of that inner critic that I was telling you about. But
Mm.
once we align with that, and we align with all our brothers and sisters, then we come from a place where we're all in this together. And together we can create a massive change and live in a world that's worth living in, different from separation and fear and greed and envy and resentment and jealousy. We're coming into, no, we're all going to work together to create a world that would be full of joy and peace and harmony and
One love.
creativity. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
one love, as Bob Marley would say.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that you mentioned that. I'm Jamaican, you know?
I know. I know. So is Darryl. He's half
I
Jamaican.
got a little bit of that in me. Yeah. Yeah. We
Yeah.
just saw that movie,
Yes.
actually. It was quite something.
Oh, it was amazing.
I haven't seen the movie yet, but I definitely intend to. Love that you brought it up. Yes, one love, guys.
One
One
love.
love.
One love,
One
one
love.
love, one heart.
One love.
Yes, exactly. That's what it's all about. I don't know. Jen, do you have anything else
I
to
think that
close us
was well.
off with?
Yeah, I think that's well said. I think that's the when I get like if I, it's hard for me to express when I work with people. So I'm like completely in them. I become them, right? I'm totally in their world, and it's like I am them, and then they are me, and so in that the unity energy of touching that is we know ourselves even more through the mirrors of relationships. So I would say really cherish the people that upset you because they're showing you something maybe that you're unwilling to see in yourself, as you already
Oh
know. I know you know that.
gosh.
and cherish the ones that are also there supporting and loving us and showing us who we are when we forget, right? So I think that relationship is everything, and I think that the place of intimacy is really what we're all seeking, and we are all trying to get the same thing, which is love, right? And that's why I said one
Yeah.
love. Like, we really are wanting to feel love, and so we have to first understand it in ourselves, and when we can, then the power that's emitted from the heart and that nucleus, that toroid within our heart, is it can change everything. Like, that's what heals our clients, and that's what the first thing that the creator said to me when I was 28 is, all you need is love. And I know that seems like almost, but it was love. He, the divine father, was, it's all about love, and
Yeah.
from there everything changed in my life, everything. And so I would say that's the big word.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. I love that you say, you spoke about appreciating the people who give us a hard time,
Yeah.
because we tend to instinctively we want to do the opposite. We want
Yeah.
to hate them. We want to get back at them. We want to
Mm-hmm.
hurt them the way that they hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
it's true, like they are here to teach us something, and they're here to teach us something about ourselves. There's so many lessons wrapped up into the challenging experiences that we have, and
Mm-hmm.
our relationships and how we relate to others are just a part of that process. So I'm
That's
really
right.
happy that you also mentioned that, because it's just so true.
Mm-hmm.
um yeah, it's at the end of the day, it's all about love. Thank you so much. I'd love for you to tell us where we can find you and how people can access your workshops.
Okay.
Yeah, our website is thenatureofus.ca. And so we have, Jen's Prophecies, a book, the courses when they're there, and the online program will be on there in a few months' time. I guess we're looking at maybe late summer, early fall. And then I guess, if they want to contact us for a one-on-one session, or we have an online booking system there. So yeah, just about everything you need to know about us is on our
Mm-hmm.
website.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. And hopefully when I'm in Vancouver, I can just come over and check out your workshop
Absolutely.
as well. Yeah, I'd love to. I know you recently had one in Toronto, but unfortunately I couldn't make it. There was a lot
Mm-hmm.
happening on my end, but thank you
Yeah, and
so
we're open
much.
to people hosting us. So if people are like, "Oh, I want to bring them in and run a workshop," that's how we host
Mm-hmm.
workshops, right? So people can always contact us if they have a group that they want us to work with.
Oh, that's amazing. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. Thank you so much, guys. This was such an amazing conversation.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thanks, Kertia.